Star Trek Next Generation is on Netflix at a time like this. Are you, we're going to get into what you're doing and what you have coming up here soon. I'm sure you're not surprised at the longevity of Star Trek, but are you? I mean, are you surprised at just even today how crazy it is?
Yeah, I am surprised. I mean, I've always believed that it was really excellent storytelling, but it seems to be more popular today than it was when we were airing first-run episodes almost a quarter of a century ago. So it's pretty wacky, but it's fun. I mean, I love Star Trek, and I always have. Gene Roddenberry's vision of the future was one that embraced people who looked like me, and so I embraced it. And to have grown up and become a part of that storytelling sort of franchise, I don't know that I can really accurately describe what that feels like.
Well, LeVar, when we told people you were coming on, we're getting texts that just want to thank you for all the things that you've done. So if you think about all the people you've helped get books in their hand and to read or to watch your work, I'm curious, as you go through the same thing we all are, how are you spending your idle time here when we're going through these uncharted times?
Like everybody, I'm catching up on some of the television, the great television that I haven't had time to watch. I'm an itinerant storyteller. I travel around, going where the story needs to be told. Public speaking and sometimes cons. I spend a lot of time on the road. I'm grounded now, so I'm having a chance to catch up on Netflix shows, reading. I've got a stack of books that I'm being able to dive into now. Right now I'm reading People's History of the United States, Howard Zinn, and writing. I'm finally ready to put some of this life, this incredible life I've had, down in words, and I'm working on my first memoir. So,
wow.
Trying to take advantage of the enforced grounding.
Please check out LeVar Burton's excellent podcast, LeVar Burton Reads. You can get that on Apple Podcasts and everywhere you get podcasts. I also want to let you know you can see LeVar, NCIS New Orleans this weekend, CBS, 10 p.m. Sunday night, written by Talisha Rex, directed by LeVar Burton, and directing is no stranger to you. When I see how... Listen, Sacramento loves you, and you were just honored for that very reason. And I grew up on Reading Rainbow. Obviously, Roots was a seminal moment in TV history, and then Geordie LaForge and everything since. I've always wanted to ask you, if I ever got a chance to talk to you, LeVar, what piece of work would you want to be most remembered for?
That is so difficult. It's like asking somebody to choose their favorite child or their favorite pet. But I've got to say, as socially important to America as Roots was, and as cool as Star Trek is, if I could be remembered for one thing, I think I would want it to be Reading Rainbow.
Yep.
My mom was an English teacher. I'm certainly an example of you are what you read, and I believe in the power of literacy, the written word, and the power of storytelling to help us define who we are, why we're here, and where we're going.
And so, is that what you're recognized most for when you're out and about? When people come up to you and they approach you, what do they talk to you most about of all the things you've done in your career? Is it that?
It is Reading Rainbow these days because of the generation that grew up on the show are adults now and beginning to have their own children. It's definitely Reading Rainbow.
LeVar Burton joining us. I want to go back real quick to something you said earlier when you were talking about Gene Roddenberry and his embracing the future that looked like you. Obviously, an African-American member of the cast of Star Trek, that I would think is the most obvious thing people would look at when you say that. But I think we got so used to the character, we look past the fact that Jordy also had a disability, air quotes, a disability as well. So not only was it an issue of color being there, but also the disability as well. And after a while, and I think this was probably my guess, Gene's vision and Rick Berman's vision after that, we didn't notice either one. Neither was noticeable, and it was just a member of the cast, not a color or a disability involved.
Well, that was definitely part of Gene's idea, that by the time we had reached the 24th century, we would have gotten past, as a species, all of those differences of race and sex and social status, that we would have really adopted a more sane point of view on who we are to one another.
That's awesome.
That is.
So of all the things you do, what do you enjoy them? I mean, you're so well-rounded. I mean, directing, acting, reading, podcasting. You talked about public speaking. You do so many things. Is there one that you enjoy the most?
I can't say necessarily. I mean, like I said, I'm lucky enough to make my living as a storyteller, and whether I'm acting, writing, producing, directing, podcasting, I'm doing what I feel like I was meant to do. I'm telling stories. Although I have to say that doing the podcast, LeVar Burton Reads, brings me particular joy because I love reading aloud, man. When I was in the third grade, Hanau American Elementary School in Germany, Mrs. Twiggs, my third grade teacher, after lunch would put a book in my hand and ask me to stand up in front of the class and read while she went to the teacher's lounge to make herself a cup of tea. And that was the first time in my life that I felt that somebody recognized me for something that I did fairly well. And from that time till now, reading aloud is indeed one of my favorite ways to tell stories. So interpreting the words of an author is heaven for me.
Speaking of heaven, that's a great segue into the final question I have for you, LeVar. In reading about you through the years, and please forgive me, the internet is not always accurate, but I remember reading something that blew my mind. And obviously, you're local. You spent a lot of time here in Sacramento, being raised with your sisters. If this is accurate, that at one point you entered a seminary in Galt to become a priest, read about Nietzsche and others, and started questioning whether or not Catholicism is the one true religion. And then you went to USC to study drama. What a turning point mentally for you! And it sounds like that turning point came from all things reading.
Reading, how about that? Right? I really recognize the importance that literature has had in my life, and that's really why I'm such a big proponent of it.
Well, we love you here, and you always have a home in Sacramento. It was awesome that you were honored, and with we're a sports show, but with everything going on, when I saw your name pop up and the opportunity for us to talk to you, we couldn't resist. Don't be a stranger, and anytime you come back here, you're always going to be greeted with open arms.
I love my hometown. Wasn't always the truth. It's certainly it's become more dear to me the older I get. And if you get a chance, go visit LeVar Burton Park.
Yes.
Over there on the south side. Have a great day, y'all. I really appreciate you.